Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Brandon, your trusted realtor, and I'm coming back to you with another great episode. Today, I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about the before process of getting ready to purchase a home. There's lots of different pieces that go into the process, and all of it can really make an individual manic. Everything from income to understand debt to income ratio, and also credit. Today, I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about credit and getting you in a place where we better understand what that means and how that maybe potentially can translate into your own personal situation. You know what's going down right now. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe and the notification. It costs you nothing but does a significant amount for the channel because it makes sure that we get out there into the interweb and everyone else gets this great information. Let's go. The power of credit is just that. It is an indicator or an indication of your ability or capacity to pay back your debts. It is your trust score. Let's begin to call it that. Your credit or your credit score is your trust score. You participate in transactions every day, whether that is ordering food from a restaurant or that is ordering something online from Amazon. That is an example of of your credit or credit transaction score or part of that process. When you buy food at a fast food restaurant, you enter into a non-verbal contractual agreement that you will, in exchange for this food product, you will pay them X amount of dollars that they prescribe. That is the same thing with credit. But if you choose, for whatever reason, not to make that payment, or you lapse on the recurring agreement, that adversely impacts you and it impacts your ability potentially in the future to qualify for a loan. Yes, even the timeliness of your payments impacts your ability to get a loan. So we'll talk about the different types of credit and different tricks and ways to maneuver through this and things that you need to be aware of as a future buyer and even someone who is a homeowner, what you need to be conscious of as we go through this entire process in the transaction. Remember, as a homeowner, you may think, well, credit is not huge. I'm already in the house, but au contraire. The reality here is that you never know when the time comes, like where we have unprecedented times now, where interest rates are phenomenal and you can refinance from an FHA loan to a conventional loan and save yourself significant money every single month. So there's a reason, just carte blanche, for you to make sure that your credit is pristine. And we'll talk about ways to do that, and we'll talk about ways of interpreting the status quo of where your credit is now. Now, let's talk about individuals with bad credit because that's just the reality. Lots of individuals in society have bad credit, and that's really an indication of either a lack of will or a lack of funds or a permutation of the two. Individuals with bad credit have used credit and established credit, but typically what I have found is that those individuals don't have the discipline or did not have the discipline in managing their finances in order to put themselves in a place where they can make sure that those expenses are taken care of monthly. One of the big things that we often fail, or I often see, is that individuals don't have an idea what their monthly expenses are each month. So if you don't keep a monthly tracker, whether that's on an Excel sheet or using some type of app, that's definitely something that you should look into just so you can either A, get a sense of where your money is going each and every month, so that way you can better gauge whether or not those costs and those expenses that you whether or not you are stretched each month. Then it becomes a more of what I consider like a cat and mouse game of estimating the time frame and being consistent. The name of the game with bad credit is being consistent and ownership. You have to come to the realization. You have to come to the realization and the recognition that you owe this debt and it wasn't just free money, or the transaction was just not free. Or you have to come to that realization that you will need this because this is a reflection of you. The analogy that I give people when it comes to credit is you walk into a bar when there was no COVID and you look across the room and you come into an establishment because you're meeting friends, and then you look across the room and you see someone that's attractive and you have no idea about this person, their past, or their history. All you know is that aesthetically this person is attractive to you, and so you're drawn to them. And so as you begin to peel back the layers of who that person is, you begin to realize that this person, doesn't do X or doesn't do Y, and it's not reliable, or whatever the case may be. And that may be a reason why you say, hey, this is not someone I pursue for a relationship. The exact same psychological transaction happens when a lender looks at you and wants to determine whether or not you are a good credit risk, or what they call credit worthy, and they just assess your credit worthiness. So if you have no credit, believe it or not, no credit is just as bad or worse as bad credit, because you put yourself in a position for so long that you've dodged the proverbial bullet of establishing credit, and now you're in a place where you're almost in some instances having to fight an uphill battle, because not having any credit means that you have to go and apply for credit with lenders. They may be looking at how old you are in respect to whether or not you have credit, and they may start you off with extremely low balances. A lot of time individuals don't realize that these low balances can be more harmful to you, just depending on how you use and maximize that credit. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Then you have those individuals who have some credit, and then obviously good credit. Some credit is those folks who are in that mid-range between, 600 and right under 700, or 580 and right under 700, because minimally 580 you can get a mortgage depending on the lender that qualifies you for. You'll probably have a higher interest rate, but you can get it done. So that is probably about that mid-range of individuals who have some credit, but maybe not good or pristine credit. And so I want to talk to you all specifically, now that we've kind of gotten the demographics of the types of credits that exist out of the way. Here are some tips, tricks, and hacks for you to consider when wanting to repair your credit. Now, I talked about low limit credit cards. There's a pro and a con to this that's really important for you to consider. The pro is that these low level credit cards are good for you to start to create a footprint for credit history. But remember, footprints are not construction. It's not a foundation. It is simply a footprint. So that means that with a footprint, you have to have gradual use. You don't use your new $500 limit credit card and go out and decide to spend $250 of that. Now what you've done is you've negatively impacted your usage. And your credit usage now is at 50%. That makes it look like you're using or relying or living more heavily on credit than you really need. Think about credit as driving, having the driver's license. It is a benefit, not a right. And so you should not be contingent wholly on living on credit. It is a benefit for you to have that credit card, and you should think about it in that capacity. An additional opportunity is to get a secure line of credit. I feel that secure lines of credit are amazing. In fact, I had established a secure line of credit once I got out of college, and to this day, it is still in that CD account, and I continue to use it. I use it for different business expenses. When I decide that I want to manage what I'm spending per month, I'll use that particular line of credit. I initially started off with $2,000 that I put into my credit union and created a secure line of credit. It issued a credit card to me that allowed me to use it for a period of time and establish credit history. Now this begins to set the foundation, because you're doing two things. You have skin in the game, and it also prepares you psychologically for putting down that earnest money deposit for a home, because now it is your own money that you put $3,000 or $4,000 into a bank and say, hey, here is secure line of credit in this form of a CD that I'll use and leverage, and I'll pay on that or against that monthly. Very similar to putting that earnest money deposit for a home that you're not going to see a return of that earnest money deposit until the end or the close of the transaction, right? It's really like good faith money. So really great opportunity. Check with your credit unions or your banks to get more information about that. Also, Be very careful when you're looking at credit cards and you have those kind of side eye companies that provide high variable credit rates. They are just teaming. If they're going to charge you $99 to get onto the program and there's a monthly fee, avoid these programs like the plague. You'd be better off getting a secure credit card and gradually stepping up your history than you would be using one of these credit cards that are more predatory in nature, because they're going to preeminently make their money off your fees and you defaulting, and it's going to impact you negatively. Also, be mindful that there's a difference between a credit card and a charge card. A credit card is something that can be paid back in installments. And remember my rule, there is no such thing as the minimum balance. If you use it, pay it off. And then a charge card is just that. You can charge an amount, but it is expected at the end of your cycle that you're going to pay the full balance amount back to that credit lender. So it's important that you understand the difference and that you're employing this appropriately when you choose if it's going to be one of those lower end kind of side eye companies, or if you're going to be using a company that affiliates with like a credit like Amex. I'll just say it, Also, avoid closing accounts. When you close your account, you reduce the available credit that you have, and that increases your overall credit usage. Remember, because those two things are inversely proportional. When you close your account, that reduces the overall amount of credit that you have available, and any credit that you've already used appears as if you're now using more of that credit to live on, i.e. it increases your credit usage rate, which you never want to have a credit usage rate that's over 30%. Again, it gives the impression that you're relying on this credit. Go back to my dating scenario. You see someone across the room and you think that they're a beautiful individual. And as you approach them, you realize that with that amazing tailored suit that they have on some really dirty chucks, or their fingernails are dirty. And that's a telltale sign to you that something in the water might not be clean, and that's the exact same type of psychological process that a credit card company or a lender will go through when evaluating your credit worthiness. Also, there's always the age-old question of how many credit cards should you have? And I always advise that individuals should have at least 2 credit cards minimally, or 3. You want to establish lines of credit and get yourself in a position where you have lines of credit between $10,000 and $50,000 at a minimum. Now, some of you may say that, I don't need $50,000 in credit, then don't use it. Just have that available demonstrates that you will always maintain a low credit usage rate. And in the event that there is ever a situation that you do need it, you have a $10,000 car repair, or you need to, let's say you want to do an auction and buy an investment property, and they require a $10,000 credit card hold. You never know when you'll need it, but it's better to have it than not to have it. So having those at least minimally three lines of credit is great. You can have more, but again, I always say manage that within, use. Also think about things as it relates to returns, points, cash returns. All of those things should be things that you think about when you're applying for credit, especially as your credit gets better. Never apply for credit when you're in the process of, or alternative forms of credit when you're in the process of completing your mortgage transaction, because that most certainly will adversely impact you, or when you're thinking about starting it. It's never a bad idea to work with, when it comes to credit, to get multiple lenders to give you multiple closing disclosures. Having multiple closing disclosures just means that having up to 3 multiple closing disclosures means that you'll be in a better situation to see which of 3 lenders would provide you with the best package or the best deal related to getting you into a home and making this a seamless transaction for you. So, we've talked a lot as it relates to credit. There's lots of tips and tricks that you should take into consideration as you go forward. But again, all of this means just taking these little bitty nuggets and mapping them together to figure out which one of these are going to work best for you. The last thing that I also leave you with is, don't be afraid to go to your current credit card company if you have one, and hopefully we all do, and ask them for credit increases. If you've been consistent with your payments over time and through a period of time, you can ask your credit card company for a credit increase, and it still increases your ability and essentially overnight reduces your credit usage, especially if you have a couple $1,000s that you already have in play. So things to think about, tips, tricks, and hacks for you. So my name is Brandon. I'm your trusted realtor. Stay tuned in tune to the latest, greatest realty here in the DMV and everywhere else. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can stay tuned in to the latest and greatest. I look forward to being your resource for all of your real estate needs. Take care and talk to you soon.